This is the Prosperity Podcast, the podcast of Island Prosperity Partnership. We are the Economic Development Organization, an alliance of First Nation governments, municipal governments, private industry, nonprofits, and industry associations. My name is Bruce Williams, and my guest today is Jean McRae from the Victoria Intercultural Association. Jean, how are you?
I'm fine, Bruce. Thanks for having me here.
I'd like to acknowledge that both Jean and I are located in the traditional territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people, in particular the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. So Jean, yours is the organization that's with immigrants and refugees who come into our community and into our region, and you help them sort of orient themselves and find a place. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yeah. So we provide, all the services to help them when they first arrive, to understand our community, how to get around it, how to find a place to live, enroll children in school. We have English classes with lots of settlement information and workers who are helping them as they just get the information they need, do income taxes for the first time, all of those things that we tend not to think about because we're used to them.
Yeah, exactly. See that the world of travel and tourism has slowed down and stopped altogether for tourist purposes and business purposes. Probably the same for immigration.
It has, yeah. I mean, because the international arrivals have been suspended, that means that there's no newcomers arriving in Canada. And on the refugee side, there's a very few arrive at all of the transportation mechanisms that are there to help them travel are not happening right now. So we haven't had any new arrivals since March.
So these are the people that we're going to be filling the holes in our employment picture and our trades picture, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But those who were due to arrive here that are not arriving here, what's their status at the other end?
Well, for the refugees, there were a good number of people who were ready. They'd left the refugee camp. They were ready to get on a plane, basically, and they've just kind of been stopped. And so they've gone back to where they were. Hopefully, there's not really mechanisms for people to go back to refugee camps.
No,
right?
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, they're being looked after, and it's a matter of waiting. And so we've got privately sponsored refugees too. So we've got sponsorship groups that we're waiting for people to arrive who none of us know, but it's those facilities open up again. We're expecting some people to start arriving again. And at this point, the government's still saying that they're going to have the same targets for this year. So we're just going to have to see how that looks, whether they'll maintain those targets or whether, depending on how long this goes on for, they say, no, we're not going to do that. So it's a bit of a big unknown at the moment. Yeah.
So depending on when things get back on track, it could just be bombarded, if you will, with all of these. So how do you for that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Good question.
Yeah, we've been, our workers have been, at first we were looking at how to get all our services online or, distance connections with clients and reaching out to them, making sure people knew what they needed to know. And for the last couple of weeks, we've been switching our attention to, okay, so what do we do when we get back? And when we're looking at the potential for a crush of people coming in before the end of the calendar year, before the end of the fiscal year. And just trying to prepare for that. We've been looking at our physical space. We've been, of course, working with our temporary accommodation provider to make sure that they're able to do what they need. We're expecting people will need to be isolated for the first 14 days or maybe different. So we're looking at all of those things to make sure they're there. And at this point, the funder has been very supportive of us doing all that work. But exactly how that looks, we don't know. On the employment front, we certainly have a lot of, many immigrants who come are going into jobs that are not in service industries, but many are in service industries. And so they're among those people who have lost work at restaurants or hotels. And so they're affected by that as well. So we're doing a lot right now to help them make sure they get to the benefits they can get to and stay whole during this period. But in terms of getting us back to work, we think we're going to have a lot of people affected by the downturn in the economy in those specific places.
Significant number of them, my understanding, with skills. They come with post-secondary or a trade or something to fill in the gaps in our workforce right now. Do you see that changing?
Well, with outside of the humanitarian class, so outside of refugee, there's a lot of employers can go into the process and sort of choose, like, I need someone who can do whatever it is, in a higher skilled kind of area. And I felt, because we're still going, in spite of going to need people for those areas where there are gaps. Our demographics aren't really going to change that much in our community, and we're definitely one of those communities where, we're ahead of the curve in terms of the aging population. So, we anticipate we'll need them, but we feel like it's going to be a bit rougher at the beginning. And for sure, even people who are highly skilled in one way or another, there's still barriers to them, crossing the gap from being new and unfamiliar with the area into the workforce. So we're still going to need mentors who have been very helpful in people crossing that gap, and they'll need the kinds of soft skill supports that we're trying to give them, as we know that for employers, those are the things that tend to make the difference between people being successful as they transition into the workplace or not.
So picking up on that, when we talk about them transitioning into the workforce and providing the skills that we need to grow our economy, and when we recover the economy, that's still going to be necessary. How do we help you with that? For example, you mentioned mentoring. Tell me what that's all about.
Well, we have a program that is, we work with the people who come in. So if we have someone who is, I'm just going to use an example, a museum curator, for example.
Okay.
I'm using that one because that's one that we've had in the past.
Okay.
We scratch our heads a little bit. Okay, so who should this person be talking to
Yeah,
get the inside scoop on how you actually get a job in the museum field? And we were able to connect that person with the CEO at the time of the Royal BC Museum, who obviously had deep roots in that work community. And they didn't spend a lot of time together, but our client was able to get really solid information about what to do and get a frank opinion and assessment about what their qualifications were, where it looked like they were a good fit, that kind of thing. And ultimately that was successful. And we've had, people in more technical fields, for example, who need to connect with someone just to understand. We've had a lot of people in the healthcare providers, but it's about, so what does it look like when you come to Victoria as a nurse? Do you get hired in a full-time job right away, or something that you go into a casual role and eventually pick up more time and build your seniority in the system? So everything's a bit different. So we're always, out there doing outreach, looking for people who will be able to help the client that we have at that point make a successful transition, or sometimes to help them, guide them into something that is maybe similar but not exactly what they were doing in the past. So that's certainly one way.
So you refer to technology, and I'm sure that your day-to-day business, the same as pretty much everybody's, is this. It's what we're doing right now. Everything has shifted. The English is a second language, the mentoring, all of that stuff has shifted online. How easy?
It's been challenging, of course. For a lot of if we look at our English classes, we go right from at what we would call a level 1 or a literacy level. So these are people who maybe are not literate in their own language, let alone in English, tend to be a little older, obviously less education, level education. So their transition into this kind of environment is much more challenging. We're helping them rely on their children to help them bridge the technology gap.
Yeah,
although, and then, for people at the higher levels, which really is a much more professional level of English and it's more focused on the workplace, most of them have a fairly easy transition into this. I think at this point we have, we were just talking with our ESL teachers the other day, and they have, I think they're up to almost 80% of our students who were physically coming to class every day have transitioned quite easily to the online environment. And where they haven't, we've been doing individual outreach. There are a few challenges in terms of people not necessarily having the technology, or when, with children being home using the one computer in the house.
Right.
There's lots of competition at certain times. And of course, we're running our classes generally during the daytime. We have some evening classes too, but so there's competition. So we're always on the lookout for equipment so that we can, maybe lend tablets to our clients, that kind of thing, things that are easy to use. That's one of the we have. We've just signed on to a new program with TELUS that will provide smartphones they're refurbished smartphones at no cost to incoming refugees, and then a very good deal for the first couple of years that also gives them internet connection. So we're really pleased about that. That will help that connectivity piece when we have new people coming in.
Yes.
Right now we don't, but
good for them.
Yeah.
Shout out to TELUS for that. Good for you.
Yeah.
So that whole workplace readiness thing and the way you've been doing it, the way you're doing it now, what does that look like going forward? Is it drastically changed by this, or will it sort of revert to what it was?
I think now that we've gotten into this, I think we're going to find that we have more opportunities. We're going to hang on to the good things about this that are helpful. So I imagine that we'll end up doing more of our work in a kind of blended delivery as opposed to an all distance. We are missing the face-to-face for certain activities. Absolutely. It's quite tough. We are seeing clients who really need to be seen face-to-face by appointment. And so we can set everything up so people are, distanced and all of those things. But we can certainly see that there's a lot that can be done online and by distant communication, by electronic communication that we haven't really been doing before. So we're hoping we're able to take advantage of those things and sort of drive more of our, things like orientations, where people have come in groups and we provide orientations in various languages to help them just in the initial stages, how the banking system works as an example. There's no reason why we couldn't put some of those things online so people could access them, through the website or whatever. So I think as we're going through this, we've asked everyone to kind of look out for those opportunities that might help us get services and information to people when they can't come into the office. So it's a big learning curve for all of us, but it's going pretty well.
There is something that you and I, through South Island Prosperity Partnership, had been talking about, was that you were looking to actually consolidate your physical location, because you're in a number of different places, into one place, which is a little difficult to find because you need a lot of space to do what you do.
Yeah.
Does that now change? Does this online element mean that you may not need as much space, so it might be easier to find somewhere?
What we're anticipating as we go back, we're still in the process of looking at a space. I think we've got a good one coming up, but what we're anticipating is where now we might have 15 to 20 people in a class. We're going to we've been sort of measuring out our spaces and looking at how many people can we actually fit in here. Yeah. So what we're expecting will happen is we'll still need the space. We'll have to really think about, how many people are in the building at the same time. In a normal day, we were having about 500 students come through our offices, not all at the same moment, but, a group in the morning, a group in the afternoon, a group in the evening. So obviously we can't have all of those people coming in all at once and congregating for a coffee break at the same time. That's just not going to work. So we've been thinking about that and thinking, how can we stagger times of arrivals? And maybe as we realize that we can do some of the distance delivery, maybe we have split a class of 20 into 2 classes of 10 who come in, maybe 2 days a week instead of 5 days a week. And the rest is accomplished through distance learning. So I think we'll still need the space, but it's going to have to, it sounds weird to say, we're going to need the space to accommodate less people at the same time.
Well, there's a change then, right? That part of it's going to change. So I just want to kind of wrap this up, but I want to ask you something in a very broad and very sweeping terms. But going through this, how will the future of immigration change into this region? Do you think there's going to be any seismic changes?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I don't know that we've got any clear answers. I've been in lots of discussions and national calls looking at with the minister and with the staff in Ottawa, like what will it look like? We're a little worried that in the short term we're going to see some pushback against immigration, but long term we're pretty sure that Canada's situation still exists. We still have, as I said, the same demographics of an aging population that's not replacing itself. we have a lot of the baby boomers, a lot of people my age are, moving out of the workforce in not too long. And we're going to need people to replace us, not replace every one of us maybe, but still, even with those considerations taken in, we're going to need people. So my expectation is it will continue, but I think my guess is we'll probably slow down for a little bit. And as the economy catches up and and we also know that immigrants make jobs and that kind of thing. So really to keep us moving forward and in some kind of manner that allows, the community to meet its needs at an economic level, as well as, growth. And I know there's been some question about whether growth is necessary, but, I think ultimately in one way or another, it will grow, and we'll need people to help fuel that growth, either as employees or as business owners and entrepreneurs. And immigrants have a strong history of flexing their entrepreneurial muscle in our country, and it's helped us be a healthy country and with a healthy economy.
Yeah. And we've been having a series of conversations we are a partnership among our partners, and you're one of our partners. So we gather together groups under a different matrix, and we talk about things. And to wrap those meetings up, we always have this sort of group hug moment online where we say, take the world of a year ago and compare it to the world a year from now. What do you want to see more of, and what do you want to see less of from what the world is going to be and what the world was? So as we transition.
Very interesting question. Yeah. I mean, we certainly want to see more people at work and returning to healthier circumstances than we're in right now in this given moment. We want to see people enjoying our diversity, enjoying the strengths of this community, and appreciating each other. I think one of the things this present moment is giving us is a little chance to reflect on what's important in our lives. And I hope we see more of that reflection going into our communal decisions about where we go forward, how we move, what adjustments do we need to make. Maybe we can make less pollution by some people working at home sometimes if they can, and those sorts of things. So I think we can learn some really good lessons from this current experience that we're going through.
Yeah, cleaner planet has come up a lot in these conversations that we've had too. How can we help you? We've talked about technology. We've talked about the mentorship programs. What else could the Intercultural Association use right now?
Well, we sure want to hear from employers, because as this all shifts, I think we're all facing some things we haven't faced before, like maybe staff who are afraid to come to work. And so if there's anything we can do to help in that process, we're happy to do that. And we want to know what your needs are so that we can help. We're one of the places where we have some source of employees. It's been hard to keep up to prior to this, but we're still here, and we're still really wanting to work with employers to make sure that they can be successful, and in turn the people who we serve can be successful.
Well, we're glad you're still here too, and thanks for your time. People can find out more at your website, which I believe is icavictoria.org. Is that right? Okay, Jean McRae, the Executive Director. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bruce.
And our website, as you know, is right there at southislandprosperity.ca. We have other podcasts for you to enjoy. If you want to know anything about what we do or what any of our members do, please feel free to contact us, and my email is available on that website too. Jean, thanks again to all of you. Stay healthy and stay well, and we'll see you on the next Prosperity Podcast.